After Liang Yongnian was dragged to his death by Shenlang, his family and personal guards in the city of the distant guard also did not escape. Just half a day later, their bodies filled several carts and were all sent to Jingtuo, who was far away in the Su clan's castle. At this moment, inside the main hall of the city lord's mansion in the city of the distant guard, Shenlang said to Wu Lai, "Pass down the order for the army to rest and reorganize. In 1 hour, we will march on the Su clan's castle." Upon hearing this, Wu Lai was filled with confusion. Haven't we already wiped out Su Nan's entire clan? Why are we still attacking the Su clan's castle? Shenlang said coldly, "Because Jingtuo is hiding there. Originally, out of respect for Jin Hui's wife, Jin Hongxian, I didn't want to touch him, but this old fool has provoked me time and time again. Since he insists on seeking death, he can't blame me for being ruthless, annihilating his entire family and his entire army." Wu Lai said with a worried expression that Jingtuo commands 20,000 elite soldiers, and the Su clan's castle is strategically located with high, thick walls. It's famous for being easy to defend and hard to attack. If we attack rashly, I'm afraid. Before she could finish, Shenlang interrupted her. "Don't worry, Shenlang, never fight a battle I'm not confident of winning. Since we are going to pacify the Western Celestial Province, we might as well do it in one fell swoop and completely eradicate them to prevent future trouble." The next morning, a roar of fury echoed over the Su clan's castle. At this moment, Jingtuo stared in horror at the scene before him. Piled up like a mountain were the mutilated remains of all the family members of the Western Celestial Province's central commander's mansion, along with over 1,000 elite soldiers. Especially when he saw Liang Yongnian's mangled half-corpse, his scalp went numb. He knew very well that Liang Yongnian's gruesome state was the result of being dragged to death. Just then, a gate guard came forward to report these bodies were sent by Shenlang's men. They also said that all of Commander Liang's family from the city of the distant guard are here. They said this is a gift from Shenlang to you. A gift? Hearing this, Jingtuo stumbled back half a step, his eyes filled with terror. "Shenlang, are you insane? Liang Yongnian is the central commander of the Western Celestial Province. Even the sovereign's own son wouldn't dare to touch him so easily, and you just killed him like that and slaughtered his entire family?" At this moment, Jingtuo was filled with a mix of shock and rage, completely unable to comprehend Shenlang's actions. "Shenlang, I framed you. Shouldn't you be going to the capital city, trying to pull strings and clear your name to protect your great achievements?" Just as he was struggling to understand, his son Jinglong walked over and said, "Father, why worry? Shenlang's actions have just confirmed the crime of him colluding with the Chan army to slaughter the soldiers of the Yu Kingdom. The more he acts this recklessly, the more advantageous it is for us, isn't it?" Hearing his son, Jingtuo gradually calmed down. "Longer is right. I was originally worried about being held accountable for colluding with Su Zhan and that charade that nearly got Zhang Chong killed. I was also wary of Shenlang's merit for destroying the Su clan's main force. But now, this little bastard has proactively courted death, leading the Chan army to openly execute the central commander of the Western Celestial Province. For committing such a great crime of treason, he will surely die." At this thought, a smile appeared on Jingtuo's lips. "Now that Liang Yongnian is dead, doesn't the credit for annihilating the Su clan belong entirely to me?" At this moment, Jinglong suddenly suggested, "Father, Shenlang only has 2,000 remnant soldiers, while we have 20,000 elites. Why don't we take this opportunity to dispatch our troops to the city of the distant guard and eradicate him completely?" Hearing this, Jingtuo's heart stirred. "That's right. With an army 10 times the size of Shenlang's, we can definitely take the city of the distant guard with ease. Besides, with Shenlang now leading the Chan army in rebellion, I, the Count of Pacifying the West, can use this charge of treason to kill this little bastard and relieve the hatred in my heart." However, as his gaze swept over the pile of corpses, he instantly cooled down. "Shenlang sent these bodies to provoke me, to force me to attack him first. Is he trying to use this as a pretext for the Chan Kingdom's queen to lead her army against me?" Thinking of this, he said, "We don't need to act ourselves. Shenlang is already a thorn in the side of the Crown Prince and the Third Prince. Now that he has committed such a monstrous crime, the entire court will surely rise against him. We just need to sit here and watch him bring about his own destruction." With that, he walked directly up to the high platform of the castle. As he looked down at the city of the distant guard dozens of miles away, his eyes filled with triumph. "Sunan, oh Sunan, thank you for leaving me this impregnable castle. From now on, this place belongs to me, Jingtuo. I'll just stay in this castle and not come out. Let's see what you can do to me." However, the next morning, a scout brought news that left Jingtuo utterly shocked. Shenlang was leading 2,000 iron cavalry to attack the Su clan's castle. Jingtuo felt a roar in his ears. He muttered in disbelief, "Shenlang, have you lost your mind? You know I have 20,000 troops stationed in this impregnable castle, yet you dare to attack with only 2,000 soldiers?" After a brief shock, a sinister smile appeared on Jingtuo's face. "Since you're so eager to die at my hands, I will grant you your wish." The scene shifts to the capital city of the Yu Kingdom. The report of Shenlang annihilating the Su clan's main force and Jingtuo's memorial arrived at the palace at the same time. However, after some deliberation, the Crown Prince chose to suppress the news for the time being and had it sent by express horse to the northern defense line to be presented to the sovereign. But the Crown Prince's suppression was ultimately futile. As soon as Jingtuo had sent out the memorial, he had also sent people to the capital city to widely publicize his and Liang Yongnian's glorious achievement of breaking the Su clan's castle and quelling the rebellion. With the push of interested parties, the great image of Jing Tuo as a god of war was established in the hearts of the people in the blink of an eye. Some restaurant owners, to curry favor with the public, even announced that all customers would eat for free that day to celebrate General Jing Tuo. The students of the Imperial Academy, upon hearing the news, were also impassioned and knelt collectively before the royal palace to request honors for Jing Tuo. Meanwhile, Shen Lang and Zhang Chong, the ones who had truly achieved the great victory, were ignored as if their existence had been erased. Of course, although the crown prince saw through Jing Tuo's scheme, he held the belief that it was better for the credit to go to Jing Tuo than to Shen Lang, and so he tacitly allowed this public opinion campaign. But then, news that Shen Lang had led Chong soldiers into the country, plundering and killing the people of White Knight County and slaughtering the officials and soldiers of the Yu Kingdom, arrived one after another. The streets and alleys were filled with the people's angry curses against Shen Lang. "Your Highness, please punish Shen Lang." Impeachment memorials flew into the Eastern Palace like snowflakes. When the crown prince received this news, he was extremely shocked. He knew that this matter had exceeded the scope of what he could handle, so he made a decisive move, urgently summoning the elites of the Blackwater platform and ordering them to carry the memorials and documents, traveling day and night to the northern defense line where the sovereign was. Such a thorny situation could only be decided by the sovereign's judgment. The king of Yu, Ming Yuanxian, never expected that after just 2 days of happiness, he would receive a succession of impeachment memorials accusing Shen Lang of leading Chong soldiers into the country, slaughtering civilians, and murdering Central Commander Liang Yongnian and several thousand soldiers of the Western Celestial Province. At this moment, looking at these memorials, Ming Yuanxian felt his temples throb. "Shen Lang, you little rascal, I was just about to enter the critical moment of negotiations with the king of Wu, and with the Su clan's main force destroyed, even the Chu kingdom was about to cease hostilities and prepare for a truce. Now you've thrown everything into chaos again." As he was feeling distressed, the loud cries of several censors from the Imperial Censorate came from outside the door. "Shen Lang has committed high treason by leading Chong soldiers into the country. Shen Lang has plundered and killed the people of our Yu Kingdom. Shen Lang has committed a monstrous crime. We impeach Shen Lang for murdering a court official and harming our army. Such treasonous acts, if not severely punished, will not appease the public's anger. Your Majesty, we impeach Shen Lang. We humbly request Your Majesty to execute this traitor to uphold the laws of the nation." Hearing the continuous calls for punishment from outside, a cold light flashed in Ming Yuanxian's eyes. He roared sternly, "Li Ji, go and beat these noisy things to death. If you can't kill them, I'll hold you responsible." The censors outside were still oblivious to their impending doom, still shouting wildly for the sovereign to execute Shen Lang. In their view, the rebellion in the Western Celestial Province was settled, and now was the perfect time to get rid of a disposable pawn. And now that Shen Lang had committed the crime of treason, it was as if he had handed his own head to them on a silver platter. It would be a waste not to take such a God-given opportunity. However, just then, several Imperial guards suddenly appeared behind them and shouted, "By order," before grabbing them and forcing them to the ground. These censors still didn't realize the gravity of the situation and continued to aggressively demand that the sovereign punish Shen Lang. It was only when the guards' punishment rods fell heavily that the censors' miserable screams tore through the air. At this moment, one of the censors turned to look at his twisted and deformed pelvis and screamed in terror, "My leg! Why can't I feel it? Why can't I feel any pain below my waist?" The censors, who had just been so righteous and impassioned, were now weeping and begging for the sovereign's forgiveness under the rain of blows. But it was all too late. Li Ji, who was observing the punishment nearby, listened to their fading cries and gave the guards a look, saying coldly, "That's enough." At his signal, the guards struck the censors' heads with a final, brutal blow. As their skulls shattered, only a dead silence remained in the courtyard. Li Ji looked at the gruesome scene and waved his hand in disgust. The bodies of the censors were dragged away like dead dogs. After the area was cleaned, Li Ji returned to the room and reported, "Your Majesty, it has been dealt with according to your instructions." Hearing this, Ming Yuanxian nodded, the frustration in his heart dissipating. He casually picked up a pastry from the table, and while tasting it, he frowned and complained to Li Ji, "This little bastard Shen Lang really deserves a beating. I know that Liang Yongnian was unforgivably guilty, but he was still the central commander of the Western Celestial Province, a third-rank official, and when Liang Yongnian and Jing Tuo framed him, this kid, instead of defending himself, just killed Liang Yongnian in public and wiped out those few thousand militia soldiers. He didn't even bother to say a single word in his defense. Tell me, where does he get the audacity to have this 'I killed him, so what' attitude?" After he finished speaking, Li Ji replied with a smile, "Your Majesty, although Shen Lang's actions are a bit flamboyant, didn't he also help you solve a major problem? You no longer have to worry about how to deal with Liang Yongnian." Ming Yuanxian heard this and said dismissively, "Just a mere Liang Yongnian. If I wanted to kill him, it would only take a word. I just wanted to use this opportunity to reward this kid. But now, what's done is done. Unauthorized execution of a high-ranking official is a capital crime. When he comes back, I'll have to whip him a few times to teach him a lesson." At this point, Ming Yuanxian paused, then sighed helplessly and continued, Li Ji, go and draft a decree for this troublemaker. Just say that he killed Liang Yongyan on my orders. Li Ji understood immediately and bowed with a smile, accepting the oral command. Unexpectedly, Ning Yuanxian then said self-deprecatingly, but this kid probably won't be grateful to me. After all, the reason he was willing to go to the Western Celestial Province was to destroy the Su clan, not to gain merit and fame. Hearing this, Li Ji said, Your Majesty, rumors are now rampant in the streets, saying that Su Nan used to monopolize diplomacy with the Chan Kingdom, and then he rebelled. Now, Shenlang not only monopolizes diplomacy with the Chan Kingdom but also controls their entire army. His wolfish ambition is probably even greater than Su Nan's was. Upon hearing this, Ning Yuanxian burst out laughing as if he had heard the most absurd joke in the world. It would be great if this kid actually had ambition. If others have ambition, I would be wary. But with him, I'm just frustrated that he's not living up to his potential. Pass on the order for this little bastard to come back immediately. Don't let him go and provoke Xing Tuo. That guy has already occupied the Su clan's castle and has 20,000 elite soldiers. He's not as easy to deal with as Liang Yongyan. If he really suffers a loss, it will be too late. I need to stabilize the Western Celestial Province first, make the Chu Kingdom completely give up hope, and then use that as leverage to negotiate with the Wu Kingdom. However, before he could finish his sentence, a spy from the Blackwater platform rushed in to report, Your Majesty, Princess Ning Jia has sent an urgent secret memorial. The sovereign took the sealed letters. Seeing that there were two presented together, he frowned. What could have happened to make Ning Jia so urgent? When he opened the first letter and saw its contents, his pupils suddenly contracted. The letter stated that on the day after the Su clan's main force was defeated, Su Nan led his entire clan to flee to the western regions. When Shenlang learned of this, he led the Chan cavalry in pursuit for a day and a night but failed to catch them. Then, he used the gold from the Chan king's palace as bait, setting a trap using Su Nan's greed, and finally captured him alive. Now, the entire Su clan has been executed by Shenlang, and their heads have been sent back to the Yu Kingdom. Su clan, exterminated. When he saw these two words, Ning Yuanxian was completely stunned. His hand trembled as he looked at the contents of the letter in disbelief. Shenlang, oh Shenlang, what on earth is in that head of yours? You actually managed to make an old fox like Su Nan fall into your hands. I was just lamenting that Su Nan had escaped again, but I never expected you to actually exterminate the Su clan. After his emotions calmed slightly, he opened the second secret letter, but this letter made him break out in a cold sweat. Shenlang was leading only 2,000 Chang soldiers to attack the Su clan's castle. Was he insane? Not to mention that the castle was built to be impregnable and was extremely easy to defend and hard to attack, but it was also garrisoned by Xing Tuo's 20,000 elite soldiers, let alone 2,000 soldiers. Even an army of 50,000 might not succeed in a direct assault. Isn't this just sending himself to his death? He immediately turned to Li Ji and ordered urgently, Quick, order the Blackwater platform to deliver a decree to Xing Tuo, and feff him as the Count of the Distant Guard. Stabilize him first. Then, tell Shenlang to get his ass back here for me. Hearing this, Li Ji was also stunned. The Count of the Distant Guard? That was Su Nan's former title. His Majesty's move was clearly hinting to Xing Tuo that as long as he stopped his retaliation against Shenlang, the Su clan's fiefdom could be his. How could Xing Tuo not be tempted by such a great reward? As he was thinking, he heard the sovereign roar again. When Shenlang gets back, lock him up immediately. Keep him from causing any more colossal trouble. Who acts with such audaciousness? If you told me he was the son of a peasant, no one would believe it. Seeing the sovereign's anxious and angry appearance, Li Ji couldn't help but sigh in his heart. It seems His Majesty still values Shenlang very much. Otherwise, with his personality, how could he possibly yield to Xing Tuo? In his heart, he had long wished to tear Xing Tuo to pieces. Yet, for Shenlang's sake, he gritted his teeth and made Xing Tuo the Count of the Distant Guard, just to stabilize him and prevent him from acting ruthlessly against Shenlang. His Majesty is truly letting his worries get the best of him. After all, Shenlang could even outwit Su Nan. How could he rashly attack Xing Tuo without absolute confidence? Just as the sovereign Ning Yuanxian was worrying about Shenlang's move, Xing Tuo, garrisoned in the Su clan's castle, was already fully armed and preparing for battle. In his view, Shenlang was nothing more than a silver-tongued, embroidered pillow who won the Battle of White Knight City by sheer luck. And this man's act of leading Chang soldiers into the country and openly killing Yu Kingdom officials had already sealed his great crime of treason. If he, the great hero who quelled the Su clan's rebellion, were to execute such a treacherous villain on the spot, given the sovereign's nature, he might be displeased but would not necessarily punish him. The only worry now was Shenlang's close relationship with the Queen of the Chan Kingdom. Once he moved against this fellow, it was highly likely to provoke the Chan Kingdom. However, at this moment, Xing Tuo stood on the high platform of the castle, looking into the distance, and began to ponder. The Su clan's castle is perched on a mountaintop, strategically impregnable. Even an army of 50,000 would struggle to shake it. If the Chan Kingdom really sends troops to attack, the sovereign, in order to resist a foreign enemy, will have to hold his nose and acquiesce to my control over the entire White Knight County. At that time, as long as the Wu and Chu kingdoms do not compromise and retreat, keeping the Yu Kingdom in a state of crisis, then I, Xing Tuo, can seize the opportunity to replace Sunan. I can not only annex the Su clan's fiefdom but also legitimately expand my territory, recruit elite soldiers, and become one of the 3 major warlords of the Yu Kingdom. From this perspective, executing Shenlang had far more benefits than drawbacks. Thinking of this, Jing Tuo immediately drew his sword and roared, "All troops, assemble, prepare for battle." But to Jing Tuo's surprise, Shenlang did not use conventional tactics to attack the castle directly. Instead, he ordered his cavalry to use the special terrain 2 miles from the castle to constantly provoke Jing Tuo's army. Confined to this narrow area, Jing Tuo's numerical advantage was useless. He could only use a human wave tactic to endure the Chan cavalry's mounted archery attacks. After 3 days of fighting, Jing Tuo found that Shenlang's side had almost no casualties, while his own side had already suffered over 100 deaths. Just as he was at his wit's end, his son Jingwang suggested using catapults for a long-range attack. Jing Tuo thought for a moment and then sneered. This method is definitely feasible, no matter how formidable your dense formation is. Shenlang, once I launch a stone projectile, let's see how you can withstand it. However, the ideal was beautiful, but reality slapped him hard. These massive catapults were fixed on top of the castle. To implement the plan, they had to be dismantled and then reassembled outside the city walls. But dismantling these machines was too time-consuming. Jingwang came angrily to demand an explanation. "You fools, why are you so slow? How much longer will it take to finish?" A craftsman carefully explained, "Young lord, please be patient. These catapults are very precisely designed. A slight mistake in dismantling will damage the structure and affect their combat effectiveness. Please give us 5 more days." Jingwang didn't understand mechanical matters, but for the sake of the battle, he looked at the progress and could only reluctantly agree. On the 8th day of the battle between Shenlang and Jing Tuo, Princess Ning Jie finally delivered the sovereign's secret decree to Lord Lang. When he unfolded the note and saw the 3 murderous-looking words on it, his face was covered in black lines. "Get back here." He couldn't help but laugh out loud. "Our Majesty's decree is truly concise and to the point." Hearing this, Ning Jie just glanced at him without responding and walked straight towards the Su clan's castle. As soon as she entered the castle, Jing Tuo greeted Ning Jie with the highest ceremony, bowing his head. After the grand salutation, he asked with tears streaming down his face, "Princess, has His Majesty been in good health in recent years? Are his meals regular? Has his old habit of reading late into the night improved? Since I began guarding White Knight past 3 years ago, I have not seen His Majesty. I truly miss him." Seeing this valiant general, renowned for his martial prowess, weeping before her, Ning Jie felt extremely uncomfortable. This guy's acting is a bit over the top, but due to her duty, she suppressed her inner disgust and said warmly, "The Count of Pacifying the West is very thoughtful. This time, His Majesty has specifically sent me to inquire after you. The serious injuries you suffered some time ago, are they any better now?" However, before Ning Jie could finish, Jing Tuo, without a word, ripped open his own clothes. When the shocking scars on his chest and abdomen were revealed, Ning Jie was momentarily stunned, shocked by his ruthlessness towards himself and annoyed by his shameless disregard for decorum. Just as she was about to scold him, she saw Jing Tuo kowtow heavily on the ground and say, "For His Majesty to remember my injuries amidst his busy schedule, I am moved to tears. Everything I have was given by His Majesty, let alone these minor pains. Even if I were to be crushed to pieces, it would be difficult to repay even a 10,000th of His Majesty's grace." At this moment, Ning Jie looked at the pretentious Jing Tuo before her and felt so disgusted she was about to vomit. She took a deep breath, suppressed the discomfort in her heart, and then took out the sovereign's edict and read, "By His Majesty's decree, Jing Tuo, for his hard work in suppressing the Su clan's rebel army, is hereby enfeoffed as the Count of the Distant Guard, temporarily guarding the Marquis of the Distant Guard's mansion. It is hoped that he will perform his duties diligently, by imperial command." As her voice fell, Jing Tuo froze on the spot. "What's going on? Ning Yuanxian directly made me the Count of the Distant Guard?" After a brief moment of shock, he instantly understood the deeper meaning. According to Ning Yuanxian's personality, if he issued a decree to scold me, it would mean he still has some affection for me. But such a sudden reward clearly means he knows everything. I'm afraid his killing intent towards me is already sky high. If so, why would he do this? Could it be? Suddenly, Jing Tuo seemed to understand something. It's Shenlang. The reason Ning Yuanxian is doing this is to stabilize me, to allow Shenlang to retreat unscathed. Why? I am the one who has followed you for so many years. Now, for the sake of a pretty boy, you make such a huge compromise with me? At this moment, anger surged into his heart, and he slammed his fist on the ground. Then he let out a roar to the sky, full of unwillingness and resentment. This almost uncontrolled scene made Ning Jie instinctively take a step back. After venting, Jing Tuo put on an expression of tearful gratitude and cried out, "Such great kindness from His Majesty. How can I ever repay it?" He then kowtowed heavily on the ground. However, as he kowtowed, Jing Tuo's heart was burning with jealousy. "Ning Yuanxian, you were the one who was cruel and unjust to me first. Don't blame me for not remembering our master-servant relationship." After a while, Jing Tuo composed himself and respectfully received the imperial edict, placing it on the altar with 3 kowtows. Ning Jie, who witnessed the whole process from the side, was both shocked and deeply disgusted by his performance. After everything was settled, Jing Tuo welcomed Ning Jie into the reception hall. As soon as they sat down, Ning Jie got straight to the point. Count of the Distant Guard, I have another matter on this visit. His Majesty is extremely furious about Shenlang's evil deeds and has ordered me to escort him to the capital city for His Majesty to personally deal with him. Hearing this, Jing Tuo's heart jolted. It really is for Shenlang. At this moment, although anger was secretly surging in his heart, he remained very calm on the surface as he poured tea for Ning Jie. After all, if he were to forcefully defy the sovereign's decree, his title as the Count of the Distant Guard would likely exist in name only. After weighing the pros and cons, he smiled and said, I am grateful for His Majesty's grace and will naturally obey his commands. Hearing this, Ning Jie said directly, in that case, order your troops to withdraw back into the castle. But then Jing Tuo said, Your Highness, absolutely not. This Shenlang is extremely cunning. Only with our army stationed here can we intimidate him. If we withdraw our troops rashly and he acts against Your Highness, the consequences will be unimaginable. At these words, Ning Jie's expression changed instantly. She cursed inwardly, You vile Jing Tuo. You say you obey His Majesty, but you won't even withdraw your troops. Is the title of Count of the Distant Guard not enough for you? Do you have other ambitions? Such greed truly deserves 1,000 deaths. Just as she was about to lose control and act, she suddenly sensed the defenses around her. There were experts lying in ambush outside the door. This discovery instantly calmed her down. Her martial arts skills were on par with Jing Tuo's, and now was not the time to tear off all pretenses. After a moment of thought, she stood up and said, In that case, I will go and deliver the decree to Shenlang. Farewell. This time, Jing Tuo did not try to keep her and respectfully saw her out of the city gate. After Ning Jie's figure disappeared, Jing Long emerged from the shadows, his face full of disgust. We finally got rid of that woman. After a cold snort, he looked at Jing Tuo and said, Father, the catapults are almost completely dismantled. We just need to drive Shenlang's army into an open area, and we can easily annihilate them. I have also eliminated all the generals in the army who were loyal to the sovereign. Hearing this, Jing Tuo sneered, Very good. From the moment we didn't truly go to support Zhang Chong, we had already completely offended Ning Yuanxian. Since he was unjust to me first to save Shenlang, don't blame my Jing family for seeking to establish our own power. After Ning Jie returned from Jing Tuo's side to Lord Lang's camp, she urged him anxiously, Shenlang, I don't have time to waste with you anymore. Jing Tuo is preparing to use catapults to attack you. They'll be finished dismantling them in about 2 days. Once they launch a fierce attack, your 2,000 Chang soldiers will be doomed. Hearing this, Shenlang's eyes turned cold, and he replied with a firm tone, I will not leave. I must kill Jing Tuo. I won't spare anyone in the Jing family except for his daughter, Jing Hongxian. Upon hearing this, Ning Jie frowned, a look of disgust on her face. Could this kid be involved with Jing Hongxian? Shenlang was taken aback and quickly explained, Don't get the wrong idea. Jing Hongxian is now the wife of Jin Hui, a trusted subordinate of my Jin family. I originally wanted to treat Jing Tuo as an ally, but I didn't expect him to be even more sinister than Su Nan. If I don't kill his entire family, I can't appease the hatred in my heart. Ning Jie suppressed her doubts and continued to persuade him, If the Chan Queen doesn't send reinforcements, with just your 2,000 soldiers, what will you use to fight Jing Tuo's 20,000? How can you possibly break through the impregnable walls of the Su clan's castle? Hearing this, Shenlang chuckled, Princess, in this entire world, guess who I understand and trust the most? Ning Jie was a bit puzzled but still thought for a moment and said, Is it Zhang Chong? Shenlang smiled. That's right, Zhang Chong is indeed the person I trust the most. But besides him, there is one other person, Su Nan. Su Nan and you are enemies, aren't you? However, before she could ask, Shenlang continued, Based on my long understanding of Su Nan, that old fox is a meticulous and formidable character. If it weren't for his excessive greed, I might not have been able to defeat him. Therefore, I am certain that he would never just hand over the castle to Jing Tuo so easily. He must have left a huge trap in the city, just waiting to explode. After listening to Shenlang's explanation, Ning Jie looked helpless. Shenlang, you are too bold. You dare to attack Jing Tuo with just 2,000 men based on a mere guess? Shenlang shrugged his shoulders with a look of disdain. It's not a guess, it's a certainty. You single old woman, how could you possibly understand the tacit understanding between us men? This statement instantly ignited Ning Jie's fuse. She gritted her teeth and shouted, Shenlang. Before he could react, she slapped him, sending him flying. Big Fool, who was guarding the entrance, heard Lord Lang's cry of pain and rushed into the tent. When he saw Shenlang rolling on the ground in pain, he became angry. Ning Jie, you can't hit Second Fool. If you hit him, I will get angry. Hearing this, Ning Jie immediately concealed her angry expression and gently took Big Fool's hand to apologize. Big Fool, I'm sorry. I was too impulsive. I won't hit him again. Unexpectedly, Lord Lang, who had just climbed up from the ground, said with a swollen face, Ning Jie, it seems I really wronged you. Let me tell you, you are not just a single old woman, but also a hot-tempered, unreasonable old woman going through menopause. This statement instantly reignited Ning Jie's anger. Seeing that she was about to explode again, Big Fool quickly stepped between them to prevent another conflict. Ning Jie, for Big Fool's sake, gritted her teeth and forced down her anger. Then she took a deep breath and said to Shenlang again, Shenlang, are you coming with me or not? You'd better not fail to live up to His Majesty's kindness. Unexpectedly, Shenlang, with his swollen face, face. Remain firm. When a general is in the field, he is not bound by his sovereign's commands. Thank His Majesty for his kindness on my behalf. I'll make it clear today, until I kill Jing Tuo and his entire family, I, Shenlang, will absolutely not leave this place. Hearing this, Ning Jie's tone turned cold. It seems you are determined to defy the imperial decree. Fine, in that case, do as you please. I hope you don't come crying to me for help when you're on the brink of death. With that, she walked out of the tent without looking back. Meanwhile, on the walls of the Su clan's castle, as soon as Ning Jie left Shenlang's camp, Jing Tuo's scouts spotted her. They immediately ran to report to Jing Tuo. Princess Ning Jie left alone. We did not see Shenlang or his men. Hearing this, Jing Tuo was ecstatic. I never thought this little bastard Shenlang would have so much backbone. He actually wasn't taken away by Ning Jie. Ning Yuanxian, it must be hard on you to be so concerned for Shenlang, even in feffing me as the count of the distant guard. It's a pity your kindness was thrown back in your face, and you couldn't save him as you wished. Thinking of this, he immediately stood up and asked, how are the catapults coming along? A craftsman came forward and reported, my lord, the catapults have all been dismantled. After being moved outside the city and reassembled, they will be ready for battle in another 2 days. Hearing this, Jing Tuo laughed loudly. Pass the order. In 2 days, we will drive Shenlang and his 2,000 rats into the open forest. That will be their doom. However, just as he was feeling triumphant, the army doctor rushed over in a panic. My lord, it's bad. There's a smallpox outbreak in our army. Hearing this, Jing Tuo was stunned. What? There's no source of infection. Where did the smallpox virus come from? In his panic, he quickly asked, how many people in the camp have smallpox now? The doctor replied, this epidemic is spreading fiercely. Nearly 100 people have been infected. At these words, Jing Tuo's face instantly turned grim. Fortunately, the number is not too large. For now, if we can execute these 100 or so people in time and isolate everything they've touched, we should be able to stop the virus from spreading further. As he was hesitating, the doctor seemed to read his mind and said, my lord, almost every section of the army has smallpox cases. If we want to isolate them, I'm afraid the entire army will have to be quarantined. These words struck Jing Tuo like a thunderclap, leaving him frozen on the spot. Hearing the doctor's report, Jing Tuo felt a roar in his head, his thoughts instantly a tangled mess. How could this be? Did that little bastard Shenlang release this virus? No. Suddenly, he seemed to understand something and gritted his teeth, hissing, Sunan. It must be him. Why did he give up the castle to me so easily? So that's it. That's it. At this moment, having figured it all out, Jing Tuo slapped his head in annoyance. He had been so cautious, even sending men to search every corner of the castle when they entered, yet he still fell into Sunan's trap. But thankfully, he and his son had been vaccinated with cowpox. But the soldiers in the army, thinking of this, he quickly asked, how many people are expected to die from this epidemic? The army doctor thought for a moment and replied, when smallpox ravaged the Chan kingdom, the death toll reached over 80%. Fortunately, the medicine in the Su clan's castle is plentiful and the resting conditions are good. But even so, I'm afraid only 50% of the soldiers will survive. 50%? Hearing this result, Jing Tuo fell silent. To lose half his forces, but for smallpox, this was perhaps a blessing in disguise. If he could still have 10,000 soldiers left, it would be more than enough to defend the castle. The most urgent task now was to eliminate Shenlang immediately. Otherwise, if that little bastard attacked while the soldiers were sick, the consequences would be unimaginable. After much thought, a cold light flashed in his eyes, and he ordered sternly, from now on, there is no such thing as smallpox in the army, only chickenpox and measles. If I hear any more rumors about smallpox, I'll have your head. Then he turned to Xinglong and said, Longer, you personally supervise those lazy craftsmen assembling the catapults. Give them 1 day. If they're not finished, execute them all. Given the current situation, we can't wait 2 days. We must attack tomorrow. We must catch that little bastard Shenlang off guard and annihilate him and his army completely. Under the threat of the sword, the hundreds of craftsmen managed to set up 2 catapults on the only road outside the castle by the next day. Jing Tuo personally led 5,000 healthy soldiers to attack Shenlang. His idea was simple. Shenlang's troops were densely packed and concentrated on this narrow road. A single stone projectile from the catapults would surely cause casualties. However, just as he gave the order to fire, a series of continuous whistles came from the direction of Shenlang's army. Then, the scout on the city wall shouted urgently, General, the enemy is rapidly retreating. They are out of the catapult's range. Hearing this, Jing Tuo cursed inwardly and then roared, Army, advance 300 paces. Reassemble the catapults ahead. At his command, all the craftsmen quickly pushed the frames forward. However, an hour later, just as the 2 catapults were reassembled and before the projectiles could even be loaded, a scout came panting to report, General, the enemy has retreated again. At these words, Jing Tuo was about to explode with anger. He furiously ordered them to continue advancing. Shenlang treated Jing Tuo like a monkey in a play. Every time Jing Tuo's side finished assembling the catapults, they would immediately retreat. This went on for an entire day. Jing Tuo only exhausted his energy and failed to harm Shenlang at all. The only result of the day's battle was that Shenlang's 2,000 soldiers were driven, as he wished, into an open area deep in the forest. Although Jing Tuo wanted to surround and attack them directly, it was already dark, and visibility for marching was was limited. He had no choice but to order his 5,000 troops to make camp on the spot. After everything was arranged, Xinglong came to the tent to report to Xingtuo, "Father, I have sent a scout back to the city to notify the follow-up troops to come for support. By tomorrow morning, we can assemble a force of 15,000. Xingtuo nodded, a sinister smile on his lips. "Very good. Now we just have to wait for dawn to launch an attack on Xinlang. If they run away tonight, we'll continue to hunt them down tomorrow. In short, no matter what, we must take Xinlang's life tomorrow." However, before he could finish, the army doctor rushed in again in a panic. "My lord, it's bad. The number of patients has increased again." Hearing this, Xingtuo's face changed drastically. "Weren't they all isolated? Why has it increased again?" The doctor replied tremblingly. "During the day, there were only about 300 sick people, but for some reason, the number jumped to over 1,000 at night. At this rate, it will probably double tomorrow." Hearing the doctor's words, Xingtuo was so anxious he was grinding his back teeth. But he had no choice. He had to hold out until all the reinforcements arrived tomorrow. As long as he could deal with Xinlang, there would still be a chance for everything else. However, at that moment, Big Fool's thunderous roar suddenly tore through the night sky, piercing straight into Xingtuo's camp. "Soldiers of Xingtuo, don't be foolish. What you have isn't chickenpox, it's smallpox." This shout was like a clap of thunder, causing the already suspicious soldiers to panic completely. No wonder some of their comrades had persistent high fevers and their bodies were festering. No wonder even the army doctor looked strange. Fear spread like wildfire throughout the camp. Inside the tent, Xingtuo was also stunned by this sudden revelation. "What's going on? How did that little thief Xinlang know there was an epidemic in my army? The ones I brought out this time were all strong and healthy soldiers. It's impossible for there to be any weakness." Before he could think, Big Fool's voice boomed again. "Brothers in Xingtuo's army, when Sunan fled, he poisoned the food and water in the castle with the smallpox virus. So none of you can escape. You will all be infected. But don't worry, the smallpox plague that broke out in the Cham Kingdom was cured by young Master Shin. As long as you are willing to lay down your arms and surrender, we will surely give you the divine medicine to cure the disease on your bodies." Hearing Big Fool's words, the seeds of doubt instantly spread throughout Xingtuo's army. Many soldiers even began to subconsciously scratch their skin. I feel a bit itchy." Just then, Xingtuo rushed out of his tent and roared, "Brothers, don't fall for Xinlang's divisive trick. I can guarantee that what you have is not smallpox, but common chickenpox. Think about it. If it were really smallpox, why wouldn't my son and I be afraid? Why wouldn't we run?" As a leader, his words had weight. The general wouldn't lie to us. The general eats and lives with us. He wouldn't lie. His words instantly calmed the soldiers' emotions. However, the calm didn't last long. Big Fool's third wave of verbal attacks was even more ferocious. "You poor brothers, don't believe Xingtuo's lies. The reason they aren't afraid of smallpox is because all the officials of the Yu Kingdom have long been vaccinated with cowpox, so they will never get smallpox in their lives. Xingtuo has hidden the truth from you. He is using you as scapegoats." As his voice fell, Xingtuo's camp completely descended into chaos. Seeing his chance, Xinlang pressed the attack, ordering his 2,000 men to shout at Xingtuo's camp, "Smallpox. You all have smallpox." Xingtuo never expected Xinlang to resort to such a despicable tactic. Unable to bear it any longer, he was about to lead his troops to attack Xinlang that very night. Xinlang quickly stepped forward to stop him. "Father, night combat is too risky. You mustn't act impulsively." Xingtuo gritted his teeth and said, "Of course, I know that, but morale is already in chaos. If we don't take advantage of this last bit of fighting spirit to charge forward, by tomorrow, when the smallpox outbreak is even more severe, the situation will be completely irreversible." With that, he mounted his horse, raised his sword, and shouted, "All troops, listen to my command. A surprise night attack. Kill Xinlang." However, at this moment, a triumphant smile appeared on Xinlang's lips. He leaped onto his horse and led his Chang soldiers, shouting in unison as they retreated deep into the dense forest. Of course, everything was part of Xinlang's plan. He knew very well that although the Chang horses were not as robust as the fine steeds in Xingtuo's army and might not have the upper hand in close combat, they had one major advantage: extraordinary endurance. So, as long as he could drag these soon-to-be sick soldiers, making them chase him continuously, they would soon be exhausted. Thinking of this, Xinlang glanced back. Seeing that Xingtuo's cavalry was gradually showing signs of fatigue and falling further behind, he also slowed down. Then he had the Chang soldiers continue to shout behind them, "Smallpox. You have smallpox." This malicious taunt once again provoked Xingtuo. He cursed Xinlang's ruthlessness in his heart while constantly trying to reassure his own soldiers, shouting, "What you have is not smallpox. Don't believe the words of a treacherous man. This is just a petty trick by Xinlang to disrupt our army's morale." And so, Xinlang's army, with a playful attitude, engaged Xingtuo's army in a game of chase. They treated Xingtuo's army like prey all night, making them chase for over 100 miles. In the end, both sides were exhausted, but they never truly engaged in combat. When the morning sun pierced the sky, Xingtuo suddenly waved his hand to stop the pursuit. Xinlang, riding at the front, also knew that his goal had been achieved. After a night of exhaustion, the virus in Xingtuo's cavalry should be erupting. Xinglong, following behind Xingtuo, asked with confusion, "Father, are we not pursuing them anymore?" Xingtuo stared at the whitening sky and shook shook his head. We can't pursue anymore. After sunrise, the soldiers will see the pox on each other's faces. Once the fear of smallpox spreads completely, the army's morale will collapse in an instant. Pass the order, return to the castle immediately. As his voice fell, he had already turned his horse around. At this moment, Jintuo, however unwilling, could only lead his troops back to the city. However, because the chase had been so long, they were not even halfway back when the sun was fully up. In the morning light, the soldiers were horrified to see that their comrades beside them had faces covered in dense pox. This sight instantly caused panic among the soldiers. Why do you have so many pox on your face? It's smallpox. It's really smallpox. Seeing this, Jintuo suppressed the panic in his heart and roared, "Quiet. Everyone, calm down. When we get back to the castle, you will receive the best treatment." However, before he could finish, a thunderous war cry suddenly came from the rear of the army. Looking closely, it was Shenlang, personally leading 2,000 Chan cavalry, shouting smallpox as they crazily charged towards them. Seeing Shenlang's army about to reach them, Jinwang asked, at a loss, "Father, what should we do? Do we fight or?" Seeing his son's hesitant look, how could Jintuo not know what he meant? But at the same time, he also knew very well that his army's horses were exhausted and the soldiers' morale was low due to the epidemic. But if they didn't fight, the losses might be even greater. Thinking of this, he immediately drew his saber, pulled the reins, and shouted, "All troops, listen to my command. Turn around and face the enemy." At this command, all the 6 soldiers could only turn their horses around and prepare to fight with a heavy heart. However, just as they were ready, they suddenly found that Shenlang's army had disappeared. As Jintuo was wondering, Jinwang said from behind, "Father, could they be hiding and preparing to ambush us?" This statement instantly enlightened Jintuo. He immediately shouted to the rear, "All troops, defend. Archers, prepare. They are going to launch a long-range ambush on us." However, before he could finish, a dense hail of arrows shot towards them like rain from a distance. The attack from the Chang soldiers, who were skilled in mounted archery from a young age, was simply overwhelming for Jintuo's army, leaving them with no way to fight back. Looking at the one-sided situation, Jintuo's anger surged, and with a roar, he was about to charge at Shenlang. Shenlang, however, maintained a shameless, "dead pigs aren't afraid of boiling water" demeanor. If Jintuo pursued, he would lead his troops to retreat. If they wanted to leave, he would harass them with long-range attacks. After a few rounds of this, Jintuo was about to explode with anger. Not only were their warhorses exhausted, but his soldiers' morale was on the verge of collapse due to the smallpox outbreak. At this moment, Jintuo, in his heart, wished he could skin Shenlang alive. But after some thought, he gritted his teeth and decided to give up the counterattack. He turned and shouted, "All soldiers, listen to my command. Cease fighting. Retreat to the castle at full speed." From a distance, Shenlang, observing the battle with a telescope, had a clear view of the chaos in Jintuo's army. When he lowered the telescope, a cunning smile appeared on his lips. The last straw to break the camel's back was coming. He then gave a loud command, "All troops, listen to my command. Pursue Jintuo's army. We must annihilate them completely." At his command, the 2,000 Chan cavalry drew their bows and, like arrows released from the string, charged towards Jintuo's army. Even Big Fool, beside him, pulled out a tree and, with his 2-meter-long legs, took a few strides and charged into the enemy's rear. He swung the tree trunk in his hand as if sweeping leaves, sending dozens of cavalrymen flying into the air. And so, under the combined attack of the Chang soldiers' mounted archery and Big Fool's terrifying combat power, Jintuo's army suffered heavy casualties in the blink of an eye. By the time the battered Jintuo fled back to the castle, he looked back to find that he had less than 2,000 remnant soldiers left. Looking at the soldiers in the camp suffering from smallpox, Jintuo frowned deeply. He never expected the epidemic to spread so rapidly. In their current state, they had no chance of winning a battle against Shenlang. As he was thinking, he went alone to the watchtower on the city wall. The next second, he was stunned by the sight before him. It was Shenlang. He was leading his men, once again blocking the only road to the castle. After Jintuo was forced back into the castle by Shenlang's army, the condition of the soldiers trapped inside worsened daily. When Sunan had left, he had poisoned the food in the wells. With no other edible resources in the city and no effective medicine, within a few days, 80 to 90% of the soldiers with smallpox died one after another. Meanwhile, Shenlang, Big Fool, and others, who were blockading the castle from the outside, took turns shouting into the city with loudspeakers every day, "Brothers in the castle, be careful. Your food and water have been poisoned." Later, Shenlang felt that just shouting wasn't enough. He ordered his men to set up a dozen large pots under the city wall and began brewing Chinese medicine in public. As they brewed, the Chang soldiers shouted up at the wall, "This is the divine medicine for treating smallpox. Brothers who want to live, Jintuo doesn't care about your lives. Are you going to just foolishly wait to die in the city?" Under this dual pressure from within and without, the morale of the sick soldiers in the castle began to waver. After all, dying for one's country in battle is an honor. Who would want to die from a disease before even getting to the battlefield? When Jintuo learned of this, he panicked. He immediately ordered the Jing family's loyalist soldiers, who had been vaccinated, to guard the city gates and not let a single sick soldier escape. However, even the strongest castle cannot contain a person's desire to live. The soldiers with milder symptoms discussed among themselves and and sent a few people to escape by lowering themselves down the city wall with ropes under the cover of night. The first thing they did after escaping was to rush to the Chang soldiers who were brewing medicine, kneel down, and beg, "We are willing to surrender. Please grant us the divine antidote." This was all, of course, within Shenlang's expectations. According to the plan, each of these deserters received a bowl of the so-called divine medicine. Just 3 minutes after drinking the divine medicine, something miraculous happened. They first felt a warmth spread throughout their bodies, and the itching that had plagued them for days actually disappeared. Not only that, but they also felt a sense of euphoria. Just as they were marveling at this, Shenlang strode over and said, "Brothers, how do you feel? I told you my medicine works, didn't I?" At this moment, these reborn deserters already saw Shenlang as their savior. The moment they saw him, they all knelt down and thanked him profusely. "Lord Shen, you are truly a divine doctor. We thank you for saving our lives." Hearing the deserters' praise, Shenlang remained expressionless on the surface but sneered inwardly. This was no divine medicine, just a fire-purging herbal soup with anesthetic ingredients. After drinking it, their nerves were numbed, so of course, they couldn't feel the pain and itching. This entire scene was witnessed by the soldiers watching from the city wall. They were shocked to see their formerly dying comrades now full of life and vigor. They became convinced that Shenlang truly had a divine medicine for smallpox. The desire for survival instantly overwhelmed reason. These sick soldiers no longer cared about loyalty. They threw off their heavy armor, frantically grabbed ropes, and began to climb down the city wall. Before long, the sick soldiers who couldn't get to the city wall rushed to the city gate. However, the Jing family's loyalist soldiers guarding the gate stood their ground, blocking them. Seeing this, one of the sick soldiers drew his sword and roared, "Brothers, these loyalists of the Jing family have all been vaccinated and are not afraid of being infected. Since Jing Tuo has abandoned us, why should we still be loyal to him? Brothers, for the sake of survival, let's fight them." He was the first to charge at the gate guards with his sword. In an instant, the conflict between those trying to break out and those trying to block them erupted into a bloody and brutal slaughter. At this moment, Jing Tuo stood on the watchtower, looking down at the chaotic battle below. His legs gave way, and he collapsed into a chair. He muttered with vacant eyes, "It's over. It's all over." A tide of regret washed over Jing Tuo's heart. If he had followed the sovereign's decree and led his 20,000 troops to support Zhang Chong in White Knight County, if he hadn't been greedy for military glory, would he not be a defeated general trapped like a cornered beast, but a great hero receiving awards and commendations? Longer, he asked his son Jinglong in a hoarse voice, full of despair, "If I were to go to the sovereign now and plead guilty, do you think he would spare me out of old affection?" Jinglong shook his head. "Father, it's too late. With the sovereign's harsh and ungrateful nature, how could he tolerate someone who defied military orders and delayed the war effort?" This statement was like the last straw that broke the camel's back, completely shattering Jing Tuo's last shred of hope. "But," he said tremblingly, "this world is so vast. Where can we possibly flee?" Jinglong thought for a moment, a calculating look in his eyes. "Let's go to the Chu Kingdom. With your reputation, father, even if we are buying a high position, we can still exchange it for a title and live a life of wealth and comfort, even without military power." Hearing this, Jing Tuo suddenly looked up, a spark of hope rekindling in his dim eyes. "We still have the Chu Kingdom as a way out." He was about to get up and leave, but was stopped by Jinglong. "Father, our attire is too conspicuous. I suggest we change into the uniforms of common soldiers so we won't be discovered by Shenlang. Also, I need to prepare the horses separately to avoid alerting the guards." Before he could finish, Jing Tuo interrupted him. "Say no more. Let's do as you say." Soon, it was the middle of the night. The disguised Jing Tuo and his son appeared silently on the high wall at the back of the castle. Relying on their years of martial arts training, the two climbed down the almost vertical cliff without any protective gear. A quarter of an hour later, they finally landed safely on the ground. Before leaving, Jing Tuo turned to look at the magnificent castle with reluctance, his eyes full of unwillingness. "We were so close. The Jing family was on the verge of replacing the Su family and becoming a powerful noble warlord. It's all Shenlang's fault." His voice was filled with deep-seated hatred. "If it weren't for that little bastard interfering, my Jing family could have risen completely. Shenlang, you remember this. I, Jing Tuo, will not rest until one of us is dead. One day, I will skin you alive and cut you to pieces." With that, he turned to Jinglong and asked, "Where did you put the horses? We must leave the city of the distant guard before dawn." However, before he could finish his sentence, a piercing pain suddenly exploded from his abdomen. Jing Tuo's face instantly turned pale, and he collapsed to the ground. But beside him, Jinglong just watched his father writhing in agony on the ground, with no intention of helping him up. Just then, two figures suddenly walked out from the deep woods. As the moonlight illuminated their faces, Jing Tuo's pupils contracted. "Ning Jie, why are you here?" As he was wondering, Jinglong suddenly knelt before Ning Jie. "Princess, your subordinate has carried out His Majesty's secret decree and atoned for my crimes with meritorious service." These words struck Jing Tuo like a bolt of lightning. He stared at his son in disbelief and said with a trembling voice, "You poisoned me? Father, please forgive your unfilial son." Jinglong looked away, unable to meet his father's eyes, and continued, "The sovereign gave your son a secret decree. Since ancient times, loyalty and filial piety have been hard to reconcile. To preserve the Jing family's bloodline, your son had to choose righteousness over family. With that, he shifted his position, kowtowed to Shenlang, and said, "Young Master Shen, my sister Jing Hongxian has married into the mansion of the Marquis of the Mythical Turtle. From now on, we are related by marriage. I hope to receive young Master Shen's guidance in the future." As his voice fell, Shenlang walked up and patted Jingwang on the shoulder. "He who understands the times is a wise man. You have done very well." He then gave Jingtuo a meaningful look. It was this look that felt like a heavy hammer striking Jingtuo's heart. Overwhelmed by grief and indignation, he felt a surge of blood in his chest. The poison and anger attacked his heart simultaneously. The next moment, he felt a sweet taste in his throat and spat out a mouthful of blood, instantly staining the dirt beneath him red. As Shenlang watched Jingwang's vile act of patricide, he couldn't help but sneer inwardly. He recalled that among the several families he had personally destroyed, Zhang Jin, the son of Zhang Chong, was willing to jump off a cliff to his death to warn his father. Count Jin Hai, Tang Luan, was willing to sacrifice his entire family to protect his son. Even the old scoundrel Su Nan had direct descendants under him who would die heroically for their family's honor. In comparison, this ugly drama of father and son turning on each other, staged by Jingtuo and Jingwang, was truly a sight to behold. At this moment, Jingtuo looked at Jingwang with heartache and roared, "Why would you do this? We could have clearly escaped to the Chu kingdom." Hearing this, Jingwang coldly said, "I am loyal to the king of you. How could I become a traitor?" Shenlang rolled his eyes at Jingwang's answer and said, "We've reached this point. Tell me the truth." Jingwang's demeanor instantly changed to one of fawning. Yes, I misspoke." He walked over to Jingtuo and said, "Father, going to the Chu kingdom is too hard. How could I give up everything here to go there and suffer?" At these words, Jingtuo fell silent. Too hard. If they had defected to the Chu kingdom, even if the king of Chu wanted to make an example of buying bones for 1,000 gold, he would only grant him an empty title of count with no real power. At that time, even a lowly bailiff could walk all over Jingwang. As for starting over and making a comeback, it was utterly impossible. However, Jingtuo slowly raised his head and asked Jingwang, "You would even betray your own father. Who in the Yu kingdom would dare to use you in the future?" Jingwang looked down, silent. After a long while, he turned his face away and said, "His Majesty has already allowed me to atone for my crimes with meritorious service. The Grand Princess Ning Jie has also promised me a position as a leader of 1,000 households in the Blackwater platform." Hearing this answer, Jingtuo was first stunned, then laughed up at the sky desolately. I never thought. I, Jingtuo, have been arrogant all my life, only to die at the hands of my most beloved son." However, his words provoked Jingwang. He took a step forward and said through gritted teeth, "Father, you say you love me, but every time we faced a dangerous situation, you sent the death squad to charge first, and then you sent me. Only after you were sure I was safe would you show up to reap the benefits. Is this what you call love?" With the truth exposed, Jingtuo flew into a rage out of shame, pointing at Jingwang and cursing, "Jingwang, do you think you can survive by betraying me? Do you think Shenlang will let you go? I'm telling you, he has the sovereign as his backer. Even if he kills you, you will have died for nothing." However, upon hearing this, Jingwang turned and knelt before Shenlang. "Young Master Shen, a person like me who can betray his own father is nothing but a despicable venomous snake in your eyes. You don't have to believe me, but you should absolutely believe in yourself. For a person with your wisdom and methods, I, Jingwang, am willing to be a dog at your feet, to be driven by you." At this moment, just as Jingtuo had said, Shenlang listened to Jingwang's humble pleas, his eyes filled with killing intent. In Shenlang's mind, one iron rule was always engraved: when dealing with enemies, one must cut the grass and remove the roots to prevent future trouble. But just then, Ning Jie's cold voice came from behind. "Shenlang, I promised Jingwang I would spare his life." Hearing this, Shenlang paused. It seemed the Grand Princess was reminding him not to ignore the royal promise. However, a cunning glint flashed in his eyes. Sometimes, if an enemy could be tamed, they could be more useful than an ally at a critical moment. Thinking of this, he turned to Jingwang and said, "As you wish. You may live, Leader Zheng." Hearing Shenlang's new title for him, Jingwang was so excited he knelt on the ground, kowtowing in thanks. Then he got up and brazenly blended in with the guards of the Blackwater platform. Seeing his shameless appearance, Shenlang couldn't help but twitch his lips. Only a place like the Blackwater platform, which devours people without spitting out the bones, could accommodate such a bottomless degenerate as Jingwang. Just then, Jingtuo suddenly threw himself at his feet, pleading with a trembling voice, "Young Master Shen, I can also be your dog. Whatever Jingwang can do, I can do better. Please, spare my life." Damn, this sudden turn of events startled Shenlang, causing him to step back. "You, Jingtuo, are the great general of pacifying the West. To live, you're willing to be a dog to a mere live-in son-in-law like me? This father-son duo, you truly have no bottom line when it comes to survival." Then, an idea came to him. He looked at Jingtuo with a faint smile and said, "Jingtuo, it's not that I can't be reasoned with, but I have a small hobby." He then called out to Ning Jie, "Your Highness, Grand Princess, could you please help me with something?" Ning Jie nodded, walked over to Jingtuo, and motioned for him to remove his lower armor. Although Jingtuo was confused, he complied. The moment he unfastened his armor, Ning Jie drew a dagger and swung it between his legs. In an instant, blood splattered, and a piece of mangled flesh fell in front of Shenlang. Jingtuo's reaction, however, was unexpected. He didn't let out any cry of pain. Instead, With a hint of joy, he asked, "Young Master Shen, can I live now?" Seeing Jintuo devoid of any pain, Shenlang felt a wave of displeasure. He had tricked this guy. Doesn't Jintuo feel pain? How could he feel any sense of accomplishment from this? Noticing Shenlang's displeasure, Jintuo immediately realized his mistake. The next second, he clutched his groin and let out a heart-wrenching wail. Seeing this, Shenlang's mouth twitched violently. For the first time in his life, he felt a sense of defeat. In the end, he had to admit with sincere admiration, "Jintuo, you truly are a talent." After a while, Jintuo was taken away by the guards of the Blackwater platform. He was put on a carriage back to the capital city. As the wheels turned, his crazed shouts could still be heard from inside the carriage. "I'm alive. I, Jintuo, am alive." However, Ning Jie, watching the carriage depart, knew deep down that Jintuo would not live. The sovereign already hated Jintuo to the bone and would surely have him publicly executed. Furthermore, to restore Shenlang's reputation, it was necessary to hold a public trial for Jintuo and the deceased Liang Yongyan to confirm their crime of treason. Thinking of this, she glanced at Shenlang beside her, who was still plotting something mischievous. According to the decree, Shenlang should also be returning to the capital city, but this guy had always done as he pleased. When had he ever taken an imperial edict seriously? Ning Jie couldn't help but shake her head and sigh. It wasn't the first time. Now that he had achieved such a great victory, the sovereign probably wouldn't blame him. Jintuo was escorted back to the capital city. His army of 20,000 had suffered heavy losses from the smallpox epidemic, with only about 12,000 surviving. When Shenlang appeared in the castle again, the soldiers who believed they had survived by drinking a divine medicine all knelt and kowtowed to him in gratitude. But only Shenlang himself knew that in this world's medical environment, the mortality rate of smallpox was already over 50%. Those with stronger constitutions and milder symptoms had merely recovered through self-suggestion. Even if someone died, it would be attributed to not receiving the medicine in time. Although the epidemic within the castle was under control, the people of White Knight County were trapped in a more terrifying situation. This was because Jintuo and Liang Yongyan, in order to win over the people, had distributed half of the virus-laden grain left by Sunan to the commoners. Almost the entire population of the county was infected with smallpox. On the streets, corpses could be seen everywhere daily. When the news spread that Shenlang could cure smallpox, the commoners who had once followed Liang Yongyan to besiege Shenlang now flocked to the castle like a tide, kneeling before the city gate, begging him to grant them the life-saving divine medicine. From the city wall, Shenlang looked down coldly at the crowd of two-faced people, a sneer playing on his lips. These people had clearly known that the Chan army rampaging through the county was composed of Jintuo's men in disguise. Yet, because they couldn't stand the idea of a live-in son-in-law like him being above them, they pinned the great crime of treason, punishable by the execution of 9 generations, on him. Now that these fools were at death's door, they were all kneeling and begging him. How laughable. At first, the people below the wall were pleading pitifully, but when they received no response from Shenlang for a long time, their words gradually turned into harsh moral coercion. "Lord Shen, as our parent official, how can you watch the people die and do nothing? Heaven has the virtue of cherishing life. With such a heart of stone, aren't you afraid of divine retribution?" Hearing their foul words, Shenlang rolled his eyes and cursed, "What a bunch of idiots." He then turned and walked down the city wall. However, words were one thing, actions another. No matter how heartless he sounded, the next day Shenlang still ordered the Chan army to bring a large number of cattle infected with smallpox from the Chan kingdom, preparing to inoculate the entire population of White Knight County with cowpox. That night, as Shenlang was in his study compiling a treatment plan for smallpox, Lord Zhang, whom he hadn't seen for a long time, pushed the door open and entered. Shenlang was delighted to see him, stood up, walked over, and smiled. "Lord Zhang, you've finally come. Look, this is the smallpox treatment plan and prevention manual I've prepared. I've also had the cattle for cowpox vaccination brought over. The rest is up to you." Hearing this, Lord Zhang was very confused. "Young Master Shen, since you care for the hundreds of thousands of people in White Knight County, why don't you administer the aid yourself and instead give the fame of a savior to me?" At these words, Shenlang laughed. "Lord Zhang, you are mistaken. I have never cared about a good or bad reputation. For me, I can do my best to save these people, but if you ask me to pretend to be a benevolent official who loves his people, I'm sorry, I can't do it." He paused, then continued, "Lord Zhang, you and I are fundamentally different. I, Shenlang, do not need to be recorded in the annals of history, nor do I need to be ennobled as a marquis or a minister. I just want to be free and do as I please. So, Lord Zhang, this time you will be the living bodhisattva, and I will continue to be the villain." As his voice fell, Lord Zhang was deeply moved. He bowed solemnly and said, "In that case, on behalf of the people of White Knight County, I thank you, young Master Shen, for your righteous act." After that, to prevent the epidemic from spreading, Shenlang ordered Wulai the next day to lead 2,000 elite soldiers to seal off the entire White Knight County. All roads, from bustling cities to remote villages, were strictly forbidden for people to exit. Violators were to be executed without mercy. Some reckless individuals insisted on testing the law. Shenlang was not just talking. That same day, he made an example of them, executing the violators publicly. Just like that, with the two of them playing good cop and bad cop, the smallpox epidemic that that had ravaged White Knight County was completely contained in just half a month. After this, Zhang Chong became a living Buddha to thousands of families, while Shen Lang became the cold-blooded demon cursed by tens of thousands. Long after he left White Knight County, there were still ignorant people who made voodoo dolls to curse him day and night. This demon who watched people die without helping. The scene then shifts to the border of the Wu and Yu kingdoms. At this moment, Sovereign Ning Yuanxian was staring at a secret report about White Knight County in his hand. When he read about what Shen Lang had done in the county, his pupils couldn't help but shrink, and he muttered in a low voice, compassionate yet proud, bowing to no one, unbound by morality, and not constrained by any rules. Shen Lang, I truly envy your unrestrained nature. At this point, the sovereign sighed helplessly, then stood up and said, Li Ji, pass on my oral edict. Strictly order Shen Lang, that troublemaker, to get his ass back from the Western Celestial Province immediately. If he dares to defy the order again, just tie him up and bring him back. Also, send a decree to Zhang Chong and feff him as a viscount. Ning Yuanxian paused for a moment, then cleared his throat and continued, as for his title, you all figure out a decent one. Hearing this, Li Ji was speechless. What emperor in the world asks his ministers to come up with a title when infeffing a subject? But even though he had complaints in his heart, he could only respectfully agree. Then, Ning Yuanxian's tone shifted. The crown prince has a wooden sculpture of Jing Mulan hidden away. Hearing this, Li Ji stammered, not daring to respond. Ning Yuanxian glanced at him and continued, the dignified crown prince is coveting the wife of his subject. What a disgrace. Go and get the wooden sculpture, clean it, seal it, and then send it to that little rascal Shen Lang. However, before he could finish, a guard rushed in from outside. Your Majesty, the Chu kingdom has withdrawn its troops. Hearing this, Ning Yuanxian seemed to have expected it, a sarcastic look on his face. In fact, ever since Su Nan's main force was annihilated, the Chu army was already at the end of its rope. It was just that the king of Chu was unwilling to retreat, still waiting for Jing Tuo to stir up trouble in the Western Celestial Province so he could take advantage of the situation. Unfortunately, now that Jing Tuo was also eliminated, what could that old fellow, the king of Chu, do but admit defeat? He wouldn't dare to truly go to war with the Yu kingdom. But then again, he thought, this kid Shen Lang is truly a monstrous genius. To think he dared to charge into White Knight County with only 200 men, eliminated Su Nan, and then effortlessly took care of Jing Tuo as well. This level of ability, even I have to admire. At the same time that news of the Chu kingdom's intention to retreat reached the Yu army camp, Chu's frontline scouts sent the true reason for their defeat back to the Chu royal palace. At this moment, the king of Chu looked at the contents of the secret letter with disbelief. Damn it, this expedition was a complete waste of soldiers and effort. Who is this Shen Lang? How could he defeat two tough nuts like Su Nan and Jing Tuo? When did Ning Yuanxian get such a great talent? The more he thought, the more jealous he became, and he waved his hand. Someone, send a delegation to negotiate a ceasefire with Ning Yuanxian. The few fortresses my Chu kingdom has occupied cannot be returned. If they want us to retreat completely, they need to show some sincerity. Have them pay a few 100,000 gold coins in reparations first. Our attitude must be firm. Tell the delegation to go to the border and communicate with King Wu first. Right now, King Wu needs our support. If our two kingdoms join forces to put pressure on the Yu kingdom, Ning Yuanxian will have no choice but to compromise. Meanwhile, in the main camp of King Wu, Wu Qi was looking at the battle report, his vision going dark and a bone-chilling coldness instantly filling his heart. How is this possible? How did this Shen Lang do it? He won 3 major battles single-handedly. Not only did he eliminate Su Nan and capture Jing Tuo, but he could also lay a trap from thousands of miles away and crush our Wu Mu army in one fell swoop. At this moment, the last shred of fantasy in King Wu's heart was completely shattered. As a new king who had just taken the throne, his first battle ended in failure. Now, he had to repeat the old King Wu's path and bow down to the king of Yu again. And with his previous frequent provocations, he was afraid that Ning Yuanxian would take the opportunity to demand an astronomical amount of compensation from the state of Wu. As he was thinking, a scout rushed into the tent, panting, Your Majesty, Bian Zhao's army has once again invaded Wu territory, slaughtering wantonly. Our army has failed in several attempts to intercept them. As his voice fell, Wu Qi's heart turned to ashes. Although the Chu kingdom had shown its intention to retreat from Yu, Bian Zhao's army had no intention of withdrawing from Wu. Instead, their attacks became more ferocious. He suppressed the turmoil in his heart and, after much thought, finally understood the king of Yu's intentions. It seemed that the only way to get Bian Zhao to retreat was to take the initiative to submit to the king of Yu and personally go to negotiate with him. Thinking of this, although he was full of reluctance, he gritted his teeth and ordered, Issue the decree. I will personally go to the Yu army camp to negotiate with Ning Yuanxian. At these words, all the deputy generals in the tent were shocked. Your Majesty, you must not. You are the ruler of a nation. How can you personally venture into danger? That Ning Yuanxian is cunning and treacherous. If he detains you and uses it to extort our country, it will be a national disaster. At this time, even the commander-in-chief, Wu Ji, knelt and advised, Your Majesty is the foundation of our Wu kingdom. You must not enter that tiger's den. As the deputy generals said, if you are detained by the king of Yu, not only will you be extorted for a huge sum, but you might also have to cede territory and suffer national humiliation. I implore to be allowed to go to the Yu Kingdom on your majesty's behalf. However, before he could finish, Wu Qi shook his head and said, "Royal uncle, I understand your meaning, but say no more. For these negotiations, only my personal presence can show sufficient respect for Ning Yuanxian's glorious victory." Without delay, that very day, King Wu made an autocratic decision and led several of his top generals directly to the border pass of the Yu Kingdom. This sudden royal visit terrified the Yu garrison commander. Wu Qi took a step forward and said, "I trouble the young general to go and inform the king of Yu that your nephew, Wu Qi, has come to visit." The commander did not dare to be slow and immediately rode off personally to report the matter to the king of Yu. At this time, in his study, Ning Yuanxian was leisurely practicing calligraphy at his desk when the border commander rushed in frantically to report, "Your Majesty, King Wu has come in person." Hearing this, Ning Yuanxian was stunned, wondering if he had heard correctly. Even for visits between monarchs, a delegation needed to be sent in advance for arrangements, followed by an invitation from the other monarch and an auspicious date selected for the visit to take place. And you, Wu Qi, just came directly. But beyond the surprise, Ning Yuanxian's heart was filled more with joy. After all, the personal arrival of King Wu was undoubtedly proof of the Yu Kingdom's diplomatic victory. He recalled that 20 years ago, when the Wu Kingdom was defeated, the old King Wu only negotiated with him on the border. That time, Wu had to cede 9 counties to Yu. At this thought, Ning Yuanxian suddenly had the impulse to summon all the generals and ministers in the camp to witness this glorious moment together. But after thinking it over, he suppressed this impulse and said, "Help me change my clothes. Let us welcome the arrival of King Wu." Meanwhile, walking down the corridor, King Wu had already prepared himself to be humiliated by the king of Yu. He knew very well that Ning Yuanxian's disastrous defeat at the border hunt had caused him to lose face completely. Now that the Yu Kingdom had won a great victory and he had something to ask of him, with Ning Yuanxian's personality, he would definitely push his luck and make things difficult. But none of that mattered. Since he was here, he could endure being watched and mocked by 10,000 Yu soldiers, even personally serving tea to the king of Yu. The only thing was the compensation negotiation. It absolutely could not exceed 500,000 gold coins. As for land, he would not cede even a single bit. This was his bottom line. However, when he walked into the main hall, he was stunned by the scene before him. What was going on? Shouldn't Ning Yuanxian have summoned his army and key ministers to intimidate him? But why did it now look more like a banquet specially prepared for him? In the meantime, Ning Yuanxian had already walked up to him. "Long time no see. I have been remiss in my welcome." Having just come to his senses, King Wu quickly stepped forward and bowed. "Your nephew, Wu Qi, pays his respects to the king of Yu." Ning Yuanxian immediately helped him up, saying, "King Wu, you mustn't. Although you are a generation younger than me, we are both monarchs of our nations and should treat each other as equals." Hearing this, Wu Qi went along with it and said, "In that case, I shall call you royal brother." The two looked at each other and smiled, followed by another round of polite pleasantries. To an onlooker, their eyes revealed nothing but deep-seated caution and calculation. After a while, both sides finally sat down and got to the point, starting the negotiations. At this point, King Wu eagerly got straight to the point. "May I ask, royal brother, what will it take for Bian Zhao's army to withdraw from my Wu Kingdom?" Ning Yuanxian smiled nonchalantly. "I wonder what King Wu is willing to offer in exchange." Wu Qi gritted his teeth and said, "My Wu Kingdom is willing to make a public apology and pay 200,000 gold coins in war reparations. How about that?" At these words, Ning Yuanxian just smiled and didn't reply, but Li Ji beside him sneered in his heart. "How absurd. Your Wu Kingdom launched an unprovoked attack, dispatching 30,000 troops to attack our furious Tide City, attempting to seize our Yu Kingdom's thunderous isles. And you yourself personally led 30,000 chariots south, approaching Weno Castle, forcing our king to lead the campaign himself. If our Yu Kingdom had lost this time, you, King Wu, would probably have demanded not only that we recognize the thunderous isles as yours, but also that we cede at least 5 counties. Now that your Wu Kingdom has lost, you are only willing to pay 200,000 in compensation. Are you trying to humiliate yourself by making such an offer?" While Li Ji was fuming, Ning Yuanxian stood up with a smile. "King Wu, I don't need your compensation, nor do I want you to cede any land. I can even order Bian Zhao to retreat right now." He paused here, and Wu Qi was stunned by the sudden offer. Not knowing what to do, he cautiously asked, "Royal brother, what do you want me to do?" Ning Yuanxian smiled. "From now on, how about the kingdoms of Wu and you become brotherly states?" At these words, Wu Qi was dumbfounded. He truly hadn't expected that the biggest winner, the king of Yu, would disregard past grievances and want to form an alliance with the Wu Kingdom. Ning Yuanxian was not at all surprised by Wu Qi's reaction. After all, the old ginger is spicier. Right now, his Yu Kingdom needed one more ally, not an enemy. On the other hand, the Chu Kingdom, he believed that old fox, the king of Chu, would not retreat easily. He would definitely try to win over the Wu Kingdom. If Wu and Chu formed an alliance, how would his Yu Kingdom fare? Rather than waiting passively, it was better to strike first. Thinking of this, Ning Yuanxian said, "Worthy brother, I know that you and your father have always regarded the change in glamorous province as a great humiliation, and you have not spent a day without thinking of recapturing those 9 counties. Why don't our 2 kingdoms join forces now? First defeat the Chu Kingdom, and then you can take those 9 counties from Chu." He then ordered someone to bring out a map and pointed Pointing at the territory of the Chu kingdom, he said, "Worthy brother, why don't you take a look now and see which 9 counties you want? You can just mark them." As his voice fell, Wu Qi fell silent. He certainly knew that the so-called alliance was just a political gesture. As for the 2 kingdoms dividing the Chu kingdom, that was just nonsense. However, for the Yu kingdom, they urgently needed to quell the rebellion in the southwest southern Ouyang nation. They needed a peaceful external environment. After that, they would need to recuperate and rebuild. And his Wu kingdom, after this battle, also needed to rest and reorganize. From this perspective, if Wu and you joined forces to attack Chu, even if it took a long time, it might not be a bad opportunity for his Wu kingdom to expand its territory. He immediately stepped forward and grasped Ning Yuanxian's hand. "Royal brother, from now on, the kingdoms of Wu and you will be brotherly states that help each other in times of need." 3 days after the kings of Wu and you formally signed the alliance treaty, Shen Lang, who had just left White Knight County and was resting at a post station, also welcomed an unexpected guest. Shui Pan, the heir of the Count of Martial Peace's mansion, requested an audience. Hearing Wu Lai's report, Shen Lang's brows furrowed slightly. He remembered that a few months ago, the Shui family had taken Shui Li to the mythical Turtle Count's mansion to forcefully break off the engagement. Following that, Shui Pan had also gone with the Hidden Origin Society to force debt repayment, kicking the Jin family when they were down in an attempt to push them into a desperate situation. In terms of hatred for the Jin family, it could be said that the Shui families was even deeper than the Su families. Thinking of the Shui family's actions, a cold glint flashed in Shen Lang's eyes. But after a moment of contemplation, he received the Shui family heir with a normal expression. There was no other reason. The Count of Martial Peace, Shui Che, was the sovereign's most trusted confidant, and one of the 6 great masters, Yan Nanfei, the head of the Southern Sea Sword faction, was also a member of the Shui family. What was more troublesome was that even the Blackwater platform was almost entirely controlled by the Southern Sea Sword faction. Now, the Shui family's infiltration in the Yu kingdom was deep-rooted. Like an iceberg, the power beneath the surface was probably even harder to deal with than the Su families. The Shui family, Shen Lang, would exterminate their clan sooner or later, but now was not the time to completely fall out with them. Everything had to be planned carefully. Just then, Shui Pan spoke first, breaking the awkward silence between them with a smile. "Long time no see. Your brother here congratulates his brother-in-law on achieving immortal merit. Also, the 3rd prince knows that you will be passing through Lang County on your way back to the capital city this time, so he has specially arranged a banquet and sent me here in advance to invite you." Hearing this, Shen Lang's lips curved up, but he remained noncommittal, simply gesturing for him to sit. After taking a seat, Shen Lang asked directly, "Do I have to go to this banquet?" "Of course not." Shui Pan smiled. "It all depends on my brother-in-law's wishes." As his voice fell, Shen Lang fell silent again. He recalled that the last time he returned victorious from the Chang kingdom, the 3rd prince had also sent people to win him over, but that time the attitude was very perfunctory. This time, however, he had the heir of the direct line of the Shui family come in person. This sincerity was much greater than before. At this time, Shui Pan, seeing Shen Lang not replying, thought he had concerns and spoke again. "Brother-in-law, I know there was some unpleasantness between the Jin and Shui families before, but there was no choice. Our Shui family has always followed the sovereign's orders. Whatever His Majesty tells us to do, we must do." Hearing this, Shen Lang couldn't help but sneer inwardly. "A fine following the sovereign's orders. You mean the breaking of the engagement was also by the sovereign's command? And 20 years ago, when you betrayed my Jin family, was that also under His Majesty's orders?" Seeing Shen Lang's face darkening, Shui Pan suddenly said, "I know brother-in-law has some prejudice against my Shui family, but these old grievances can be resolved in the future. Right now, there is something that brother-in-law might need to know. That is the true identity of Kutuhuan." However, when these words came out, Shen Lang clearly didn't show much interest in the matter. Shui Pan, ignoring his indifferent expression, continued, "Kutuhuan's real name is Shui Chen. He is Shui Xiaoyan's sworn brother, a trusted confidant of the Crown Prince, and the one who, under the Crown Prince's orders, went to assassinate Marquis Jin Zhua." At these words, Shen Lang's expression changed drastically. "What did you say? The Crown Prince sent someone to assassinate my father-in-law? Fine, fine. Since you dare to touch my, Shen Lang's, family, then from this day forward, the Crown Prince and I are irreconcilable enemies." Hearing this, Shui Pan struck while the iron was hot. "Since we both have a common enemy, why not fight in the same trench for now?" At this point, he beckoned outside. "I know my younger sister, Shui Li, was ignorant before and brought great harm to the Jin family, but right now, the marriage alliance between the Shui and Jin families can still be continued. Menger, come here quickly." As his voice fell, a pure and lovely young girl walked to Shui Pan's side. "This is my youngest sister, Shui Meng, and she is also my father's most beloved pearl in his palm. The heir Jin Mutsung is talented and brilliant, a perfect match for my sister. How about we let these two become husband and wife?" Faced with the lovely girl before him, Shen Lang showed a very satisfied expression and said, "This girl indeed looks 100 times better than that shrew Shui Li." However, he looked at Shui Meng and said something very shameless. "Jin Mutsung is not as handsome as I am. Are you really willing to marry him?" Hearing this, Shui Meng's ears turned red, and she said in a voice as soft as a mosquito's, "I have secretly gone to see the chubby brother. I quite like him." Shen Lang nodded after after hearing this, then said to Shui Pan, "In that case, after I return to the capital city, I will immediately write a letter to inform my father-in-law and mother-in-law of this matter." Shui Pan bowed and said, "Then I will await the good news. Also, the third prince is waiting with an empty seat when brother-in-law passes through Lang County. I hope you will be sure to pay a visit." Shen Lang smiled. "I will try my best to go." Seeing this, Shui Pan tactfully said no more. After a few pleasantries, he took his leave from Shen Lang with Shui Meng. Watching their departing figures, the smile on Shen Lang's face suddenly froze, and a chilling coldness filled his eyes. The next day, as if the secret conversation with Shui Pan the night before had never happened, Shen Lang set off for the capital city as usual. At the post station where he stayed that night, the station master's attitude towards Shen Lang was completely different from before. The solicitous manner in which he served Shen Lang was highly satisfactory. When he was full and ready to return to his room, he was stopped at the door by the Sword King. "Young Master Shen, there is someone in your room, and it's a woman." Hearing this, Shen Lang's heart leaped with joy. Could it be that my darling Mulan has come for a surprise visit? Elated, he pushed the door open and shouted, "Darling, have you come to welcome your husband personally?" Unexpectedly, before his voice fell, a woman's voice that could melt bones came from the bed in the darkness. "Young Master Shen, you've returned. I have been waiting here for a long time." Hearing this unfamiliar voice, Shen Lang was stunned. At this moment, the woman slowly turned her head. When the moonlight shone on her face, Shen Lang recognized her. It was the Crown Prince's mistress, Shui Zhaoyan. Shui Zhaoyan smiled charmingly. "I suppose Shui Pan has already met with young Master Shen. However, I guess that you, young master, certainly did not agree to anything he said." Listening to Shui Zhaoyan's languid voice, Shen Lang frowned and asked in a displeased tone, "I wonder what is the purpose of Miss Shui's late-night visit?" Hearing this, Shui Zhaoyan stood up and chuckled lightly. "His Highness the Crown Prince greatly admires young Master Shen. There were some small misunderstandings between young Master Shen and His Highness the Crown Prince before, but misunderstandings, of course, can be resolved." "Small misunderstandings?" Her words made Shen Lang laugh with anger. "You mean to say that he, the dignified Crown Prince, sending someone to assassinate my father-in-law and secretly coveting my wife, these are all small misunderstandings that can be easily resolved?" Before he could finish, Shui Zhaoyan smiled charmingly. "Of course, they can." At this moment, she lightly caressed the sash of her dress, and the gauze garment slipped off, her perfect body appearing even more alluring under the moonlight. "Young Master Shen, am I not the gift of apology sent to you by His Highness the Crown Prince?" Her eyes were like silk, and she moved toward Shen Lang. "An hour of a spring night is worth 1,000 gold. You must not fail to appreciate the Crown Prince's kind intentions." However, the moment she got close, Shen Lang quickly dodged to the side. Shui Zhaoyan was taken aback. "Young Master Shen, do you think I am not as good as my junior sister, Jean Mulan?" However, Shen Lang pretended to be in a difficult position and explained, No, you are a woman fancied by the Crown Prince, so naturally you are very attractive to me. But you're too dirty. I'm afraid of being poisoned." This sentence was like a slap in the face, making Shui Zhaoyan's face instantly turn ashen. She never thought that Shen Lang would say such humiliating words to her. Looking at the trembling Shui Zhaoyan, Shen Lang felt a great sense of disgust. Shen Lang, may be lecherous, but I don't want just any woman. This woman has probably been through countless battles to help the Crown Prince win people over. However, given the Crown Prince's possessive nature, this title of mistress is probably just for show." At this moment, Shui Zhaoyan took a deep breath, suppressed the anger in her heart, and then put on a smile again, wanting to press herself against Shen Lang. Unexpectedly, in his urgency, Shen Lang blurted out, "Miss Shui, you have no idea how many men have slept with you. I really am a germaphobe. Please don't come any closer." With these words, Shui Zhaoyan finally couldn't hold it together anymore. At this moment, she really wanted to tear Shen Lang's shrewish mouth to shreds. But in the end, for the sake of the bigger picture, she swallowed her anger, grabbed her clothes, and while putting them on, said, "Shen Lang, do you really think that with the sovereign's backing, you can be so unscrupulous? You should know that the sovereign's favor is unpredictable. With the sovereign's volatile nature, you, Shen Lang, may be favored today, but you could become a prisoner tomorrow." After hearing this, Shen Lang shrugged indifferently. "So what?" Shui Zhaoyan, seeing him like this, couldn't help but laugh coldly. It seems young Master Shen has really gotten ahead of himself. I hope that what happens next will be able to sober you up. I won't disturb you any longer, young Master Shen. I wish you a good dream." After saying this, she turned to leave. Shen Lang called after her, "Shui Zhaoyan, your conspiracy with the Crown Prince to have Kutuhu and assassinate my father-in-law won't just be forgotten. When I return to the capital city, I will definitely seek justice from you." At these words, Shui Zhaoyan stopped, looked back with a provocative smile, and said, "As you wish. However, young Master Shen, I advise you to hurry back to the capital city, and don't stop when you pass through Lang County. Maybe there's a surprise waiting for you in the capital."